what's happening with TV as an advertising medium?
I think in some ways, what's old is new in the sense that sight, sound, and motion will always be a better way to tell a story. And more marketers are allocating the right amount of money to create content that tells a story. The first thing is the cost of that content has come down dramatically. It used to be that in order to make a television commercial, not only did you need a lot of money, in some cases millions of dollars, but you needed a huge amount of time. That is no longer the case. Great content is available at very low cost, very high speed from all sorts of sources, whether they're professional or UGC. So the cost of the content has come down. Secondly, the precision of delivering media, whether it's linear or CTV, which is also a distinction that will go away, has come down because you're able to not just, in the quote good old days, your selectivity for budget management was regional, based on DMAs. Periodically, it would be based on day parts, but for the most part, it was based on DMAs. And we all know, like, DMAs were created in the 50s based on the distance that television airwaves traveled from antennas and high buildings. And, I'm often fond of saying that when you think about northern New Jersey, the 5 boroughs in Connecticut as part of one DMA, it's hard to imagine one DMA with so many dozens of communities within it. So now you're able to be much more selective around where your audience is, where your distribution is, where your stores are, in ways that you weren't. And so I think those two factors, both the content creation and the distribution elements, have gotten so much more manageable that, given the benefits that video presents, it's just so much smarter for more companies to use it.
And Tony, I wanted to talk about the maturity of YouTube. And of course, you've followed YouTube for many years, since its launch, I would say, and it's been a big factor in the upfronts and the work of Digitas and all, of course, that you've done over the years. Tell us about the sophistication of YouTube as a platform, and also the work of Pixability and how that kind of makes it work even better, perhaps.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Andy. When we were the original founder of the NewFronts with, AOL and Yahoo, et cetera, nobody even thought about having YouTube as part of it. And then they came along and they said, can we have a slot? And the next thing you know, the Wednesday night YouTube presentation, whether it was in some really fancy location on the waterfront or whatever, became sort of the tentpole of NewFront Week, because they realized very quickly that they had access to audiences that nobody else had. And they would always fill those events, of course, with YouTube creators who, for the most part, were strangers. They're alien to the buyers in the room. We didn't know who these people were. We didn't know really what a YouTube creator was. And so Margot and her successors used to always have to take some portion of time in their presentation to introduce, what is a YouTube creator? How many views does this person have? Let's meet this one. Let's meet that one. And I remember, like it was 5 minutes ago, Andy, going to one of their presentations. It might have been in the Javits Center, huge presentation. And we met these creators who most of us had never heard of. And then we go outside and there were literally thousands of largely teens waiting outside because word had spread that a creator they loved was there. It was an aha moment for me that these creators were going to be able to command huge audiences, as a result, massive advertising budgets, and that they had tapped into an audience that most of us were seeking for one reason or another, but weren't aware of how to reach. And so at that point, early days, you're sort of buying into, okay, it's scale. And I can tell you, in every YouTube presentation I've ever been to, a sentence along the lines of the following was uttered, which is, in the last hour, so many hours of content has been uploaded to YouTube. You've heard this a million times. And whether the numbers were thousands, millions, or billions, the message that YouTube was always trying to deliver was just vast quantities of content are being uploaded and viewed beyond what you can comprehend. The problem with that is, so what do I do about that? It turned a point they were trying to make, which was vast amounts of content and huge audiences, into a problem, which just felt like an unmanageable sea of content that was A, going to be very, very difficult to figure out how to navigate, and B, potentially get my brand in trouble because there's just no way you can monitor all that. And so when I met David George and the team from Pixability, I was really impressed with the tools and the technology and the personal experience they had with helping clients manage YouTube, not just YouTube, but other CTV platforms as well, Roku, et cetera. But YouTube primarily has become such a dominant force in the distribution of video to audiences around the world. You need a navigator. You need someone who can help you figure out A, where to go, B, what you should pay for it, C, whether it's working, and D, whether it's worth doing again. And the downside of not having a Pixability help you is you're going to waste enormous amounts of money, and it's going to be like it's going to be opaque to you, and you are definitely going to get your brand in trouble. One of the things I learned early on is if a brand ends up in an unsafe place, somebody will find it, and the next person who'll see it will be the CEO. And from the CEO to the CMO to the agency with a blistering, how did this possibly happen? And the risks are just too great. So the guys at Pixability, I think, are super smart at being, advisors to clients, to platforms, but we're talking about YouTube in particular, that has gone from being interesting to big to critical. I mean, YouTube is a critical component of every media buyer's buy right now. And they've made enormous strides in searchability, in safety, in reliability. They've done really, really smart things to build the brand and build the offerings. It's no longer a question about whether or not you're going to invest in YouTube, but are you going to do it smartly, or are you going to do it with somebody who can really make sure that investment is wise, or you're going to just kind of, take your chances. And I would not advise anyone to just take their chances.
And Tony, just one more bit of advice, if you could share your thoughts, perhaps on the future of marketing, some thoughts that you've maybe reflected on coming out of Dunkin and your years at Digitas. What you hope maybe the future of marketing will look like. Some thoughts you'd like to share with us today.
Well, you're very kind to ask, Andy. I would say that the ability to measure the impact of your expenditures, both in terms of audience and performance and how it's optimizing, are only going to get stronger. The analytics and the tools available to measure what you're doing are only going to get better. That's good news. I would say the caution is don't follow that out the window and lose sight of the fact that brands are still symbols of trust. Brands still need narratives, and they still need stories. And from cave paintings to today, stories have been the thing that have linked us as a species. So make sure you're spending just as much time on the story as you are on the performance.